As you can see, all the pieces are cut and stacked. I run them through the planer so that I get a smooth surface to start working with, but a lot of sanding has to be done to get that finish. Now the dimension of the side table is going to be 22 inches tall, 24 inches wide and 15 inches deep. To get the 15 inches width, I have to join this wood together using dowels, and to do that I have this doweling jig. This is just an acrylic sheet, a 5 mm acrylic sheet stuck on top of a hardwood with a 8 mm hole drilled in the center. My dowels are 8 mm, so I have this 8 mm hole here. I am going to put the doweling jig over here and start drilling holes, put the dowels inside, join them together. Before I use the doweling jig, I have to join the faces. Right now it is a little rough. All these are straight from the timber market, so I have to cut them in the table saw and then I will be able to use the doweling jig. Now when I push the boards together, you can see that they join without a gap, but it's important to see the way the grain flows, because during different seasons wood tend to expand. So if we attach them with different grains, then there is a chance that it might crack or give some gaps where I have joined. So here you can see the grain kind of flows in this way, whereas here in this the grain flows on this direction. So let me take this piece away and try to match it with a piece which has the same grain direction. So this one, if I put it, you could see the grain's direction is in this side and the same is on this side as well. To join the boards, I take my pencil and start marking wherever I need the dowels. So these are the points in which the dowels will go in. So I'll take the pieces now and start drilling the holes. To make the dowel holes, I have to align the jig's marking with the pencil mark and clamp it. I have wrapped masking tape to indicate the depth until which I have to drill. Then I can test if the dowels fit in. I use a lot of glue when I am clamping boards together, because mostly the dowels are just used to line the boards together, but it's the glue that does the heavy work of keeping the boards together. So lots of glue and an even bead of glue squeeze out is a good sign. The clamps on the sides help the board from bending. After 3 hours, I am able to take the clamps out. Now both the planks are actually ready. These are almost 18 inches wide and I need only 15 inches. So I am going to resaw them in the table saw, and then this is a little over 24 inches, so I will cut them in the miter saw as well. I will also cut all the other pieces so that I can dowel them out and then join it together. I need to clean the other edge too. So first I do that by running it into the table saw before cutting the board to size. On the miter saw too, I first clean one edge. And then I can measure from the fresh edge and cut it to the required length. Because my miter saw is not deep enough, I can flip the board and make the cuts. So here are all the pieces cut and assembled together. This is just a dry fit to show you how the table is going to look. I can take this top off and then you can see how the inner is going to be set. Before I fix the top, I am going to make this C shape. So I am going to put dowels all on this side and fix it with this piece. Again the dowels on this side and fix it with this piece. Then I can take this whole setup, drill holes on the base and fix it on the base, and then I will put the top, and that way I think it will work. There's just one way to find out. I'm making a huge mistake here. If you know what it is, then please write down in the comments. I want to see how many of you can find out what it is. But for others who do not know, here it is. I just can't stop laughing at myself because I made such a stupid, idiotic mistake. Basically these two sides are supposed to go on the side. Maybe you guys have already realized how stupid I am when I was doing the doweling, but it took me such a long time for me to realize. So this has to go on the side, but I inset them, because of which if I place it flush on this side, you can see how much of a space I get on this side. So now I have to take it back to the table saw, cut this into two different pieces, dowel it here, join it, and then join it to this piece. So many projects I've done and I still haven't learned how to do it. So yeah, this was particularly scary because it's such an awkward shape and the piece may fall into the blade. So I held the piece while pushing it into the table saw. You can see the dowel pins here and some of the end grains stuck to the wood. This time, after rightly gluing the pieces, I kept the top piece on it, and using a square, I marked the places where I need to drill the holes for the dowels. That's a lot of dowels and a lot of glue. I had to use a mallet and a piece of wood to push the pieces together. Finally, I clamped them both tight and let it dry. It's a brand new day. The previous night I was able to glue the top on to the C shape. It was particularly difficult because the dowels did not match everywhere, but it's a learning process for me. I wanted to see how I can make a table with just the dowels, and I'm learning, and I'm hopeful that you also learn something in this process. So today I will remove these clamps, drill some holes and put the bottom up, possibly use the tricks that I learned last night and make this process easier. You can see here how the glue squeezes out when I tighten up the clamp. Now you can see this is like a fully clamped one. I do not have enough clamps. I should buy more clamps, but these kind of clamps are actually costly in India. The one that you actually see me using, the metal one which squeezes most of the glue, I bought it from Amazon.in. It was just $1,000 and it was really cheap for that kind of a good clamp, but I wanted to buy more and suddenly it's not on sale anymore. I wish I can find something more like that. If you know where I can get that from, please let me know. After letting the glue dry for a day, I was able to take the clamps out and then I gave it a good sanding. There were some inconsistencies where the joints did not align properly, but it was like really minor, and I used 40 grit sandpaper and I was able to sand out clean. All the glue squeeze out, everything was cleaned properly and all the sides. After sanding everything, I was able to find out there are certain gaps in the places where I joined. That's mainly because I didn't have enough clamps to put everything tight together. The idea that I came out with to use these brass rods. This is actually a 3 mm by 3 mm brass rod that I can actually inlay inside these gaps. These are just 3 by 3 mm, so this will not affect the stability of the wood. I have put a 3 mm bit on the router. I'm going to clamp a fence and then run the router on this edge so that I can put this brass rod and epoxy it. To know where I am going to route the path, I first set the router bit exactly where I need it to be and then mark over the side. So now I've got a mark here. I'm going to do the same on this side as well. Now I got these 2 points where I have to actually set the fence. So here's my fence. Take my clamp it in place. And here's the routed path. It's a clean path, and to test it, there's the rod that I would try to slide in, and you can see it fits perfectly. There's a little bit of overhang. I wanted this because I'm going to sand this flush. While the epoxy dries, I want to show you how I made the legs. I outsourced the job to a wood turner and it came out good. It was particularly interesting to see him use his legs to turn the wood. I have already cut the legs at 15 degrees angle because that's the most prominent one. and I can then fit it on my bench vise like this. I've put this cloth so that there's no teeth marks on the piece of wood. Now I have to drill 2 holes here and put some dowels, but before that this has to be perfectly level to the ground. To do that I am using a level. So when I put it at this, you can see it's a little on that side, so I can adjust it, minute adjustments to make sure it is in the center. This is perfectly fine, so I'm gonna tighten it up and lock it in place. Before I can do that, I'm going to pre-drill because this is end grain and there is a chance that the drill might wobble. So I'm going to pre-drill with a 3 mm hole first. Once that is done, I can change it to the 8 mm bit. Now this should go in proper. The leg is ready for glue up. I've already put some dowel pins inside the leg. Now all I have to do is set it over here. So it's time for a major glue up. And finger crossed, this is the first time I'm actually doing this. So I'm excited, at the same time I'm scared. This is such an awkward shape and I don't know what is the best method to clamp it. Although I do see a good amount of glue squeeze out, but that's just only because of the pressure that I put it. This is a quick setting glue. It's called as Hyperbond from Fevicol. So I hope this one catches up very fast and glues it soon. Now that the epoxy has dried up, I can start the long process of sanding. Last night I finished sanding all these brass inlays and I was able to fix the legs, which you saw. The legs are all dried up and it's sitting flat on the table, but there is this wobble. The legs are actually, if you see, they are like inclined and there is just this point of contact which is not good. It has to lay flat on the bench, so I have made this jig. It's a small block. The total measurement is around 2 inches because I have to take around 2 inches because the entire has to be 22 inches. So I've taped a pencil to it and I'm going to place it like this and mark a line where I have to cut. And then I will take my saw and then cut the legs, and that would help it stay flat on the floor. So the legs are cut, I sanded them to match the marking. Now there's no wobble on either side. All that remains is to give it a good coat of sanding, at least with the 320 grit sandpaper, and then I'm going to finish it with Asian Paints Wood Touch. It's for the outdoor, but it works fine for the indoor as well. Almost after 3 to 4 days of work, this table is complete. Last night I sanded it good with the 320 grit sandpaper and gave 3 coats of polyurethane finish. It's from Asian Paints and it's called Touch Wood. I think it's Touch Wood. So what did I learn from this project? You don't need actually tools if you really want to get things done. For example, making these legs, I didn't have a lathe. But I went to the city and I was able to find somebody who can actually make this legs. It was damn cheap. Trust me, it was damn cheap to actually make it. Also, you saw that I made a lot of mistakes. For example, the sides, I did not clamp it on the outside. I glued it inside and then I had to cut it. This groove here, that was a mistake that I made because I didn't have enough clamps to clamp everything together. But I was able to salvage that situation by putting in brass inlays, and that worked out really fine. You just have to improvise as you go on till you get that vision in your mind. Just don't stop or just don't give up on the project because it didn't come out good. You just have to work on it, and I'm sure you can salvage any situation and make it really good. What do I need from you is that push that like button to tell me if you really enjoyed this project, and if you have some comments or suggestions on the build that I made, please put them in the comments. I'm JC Happy and you've been watching Kalakar.in. Until next time, happy learning.